Truth be told, this has all been a sociological study, behavioral psychology. For my master's, that's all I've been doing all this time. Couldn't you tell? It's all about censorship, isn't it? The First Amendment, being able to express our thoughts and words and grievances specifically against the government, to redress them. That's a very, very difficult thing to do. But in any case, my study's done. I appreciate everyone for participating. All your names have been taken on lists. Don't worry about it. We have our good Santa list, and then we have our bad Looney Tunes devil side and the angel side. I think that's how it works, right? At least that's how I look at it. So it was an interesting study. It's a wonderful warded community you have. Thanks for inviting me in. I hope you don't kick me out. But in any case, I'm still here. and that's about it. My purpose was to see how far we can test everyone. To offend them, of course. That's the whole purpose, is to see how far we can go till they feel offended. To see what triggers them. And the interesting thing is that oftentimes those who profess being ardent advocates of the First Amendment and free speech, other than perhaps what we consider to be obscene speech, that's verboten. We can be as crude as we want and be profane, but we can't go into obscenity where we're asking for sexual favors. That's beyond an absurd thought, like when Larry Flint had his Hustler magazine have a very interesting article on how Jerry Falwell, one of the most and greatest known evangelists ever to walk the earth and in Western civilization and beyond, that Larry Flint wrote that Jerry Falwell fornicated with his mother. If I'm not mistaken, I didn't read the article. I've just heard about snippets and read things from case law, you understand? But the point is, more importantly, that the case law, all the way to SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, the top dog of the justice system. Hi, Ranger. This is Liberty Ranger, everyone. This is the mascot of the First Amendment Auditory Movement. He's a cool dog. He's 13. He jumped in the bed all by himself. Not bad, 40 pounds, a little bit overweight. All right, I'm going to get back to this, Ranger. Thanks for visiting us, Liberty Ranger. He's my dog. We're actually friends. We adopted each other over a decade ago, and I got Ranger a new hip right away. It gave out a few years ago, but he's a happy dog. You can lick me more if you'd like, Ranger. Do you want to give me a lick? Okay. Don't perform for the audience. He's been speaking to Lassie much too much, getting bad advice, turning my own dog against me, wanting to renegotiate his damn contract. Anyway, getting back to what's important, censorship, and maybe even a little bit of hypocrisy. Did Leslie say hypocrisy? No, it wasn't me, it was someone else. An alter ego over there. Ignore everything you just heard, except from what Ranger said. He writes all the scripts, so if you have any complaints or grievances, you send it to Ranger. A bribe of a few liver, I suggest, biscuits. He hates liver. No, he really loves liver. Anyway, you do what you want. I can't control you. So the point is, one of my goals was to see whether I could get to the point of offending. Yes, that's the word. Offending everyone eventually, because I have such a disparate and eclectic, eccentric variety of videos and thrown on playlists and hither and yon, just to put on playlists to not um, dampen the types of liberty movement videos that I have. As it is, it's already done just with its basic nature of the odd vids that I put up. I wish I could be out there more to risk getting my teeth planted in the pavement. I already have one down here, see? It's decaying on me. I'm old. I have been out there a little bit. Not of my choosing. I was dragged out. I was roped and tied and gagged, forced out of my house for nearly a month. It wasn't my fault. It was against my will. I was brainwashed. Brainwashed it was. I joined a cult. It was my own volition. It was. And it was a nice experience. I'm glad I went out there. That's all. I came back alive. That's a good thing. So, now here I am in this time, place, and manner for reasons that I explain a little bit in all my vids. And the more you watch my vids, the more I guarantee you'll be prone to want to unsub from me. Because that's one of my goals, to offend everyone to the point where I end up with 0 subscribers. Now, there are a few of you there who stubbornly hang on, just like the angels who I don't believe in. They still insist upon hovering nearby me, all around me. I mean, seriously, I can't get rid of them. And every time these coincidences happen, they ignore me. I just told them I don't believe in you, and they're still there. I don't get it. Like gnats, happy little gnats. So, I guess we'll just work together a little while. I don't really join any club or answer to any choir. I just basically believe in the enlightened Constitution until a better document comes along. And I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater because I like those checks and balances. It slows things down. I even like to the point where even the electors themselves don't have to vote the way the constituency told them to. That's a hell of a check and balance. I kind of like that. I mean, guillotine me for saying that. There were reasons why they did it. Sometimes a society can get emotional, even for a short period of time, whether it's a week or a month or several months, when chaos can erupt. And what do? You add checks and balances to slow the process down. There are reasons why even now, over hundreds and hundreds of years, because these first votes for the presidency, for POTUS, I know the screen's not good. I've had a lot of computers. This one's my worst. But deal with it. The content's okay, I think. You would have shut it off before, most of you did. That's fine. It is what it is. I can't be for everybody all the time. At least I gain a little influence. And I hope that will better and further liberty. My goal, or my time spent. So anyway, my sardonic point is that if you watch enough of my vids and binge, which sometimes some people do, most people don't, very few people even know I exist. That's fine, I have my influence. I always want more, but I'll take what I can get. It's more than I ever anticipated, especially at my age. I'm 173, mind you. I don't look a day over, I'd say 173. So, that didn't come off too well, that joke. It's usually done better. You can't be stuttering through a joke. It doesn't work. It looks stupid. You talk too much, you look like a fool. Thank goodness I hardly talk at all. I don't go on panels, but I talk a lot, and I put up a lot of vids, and all I do is talk. Right? I do. I admit to it. It's what I do best. So I would anticipate that being human beings, you get to a point like living with someone too long, listen to my simple prose titled Love. Extemporaneous. But it was fine. I don't have time right now to take more than one take. When I do my writing, I'll do as many drafts as it takes. There's no limit to that. Some shorter ones could just be 2 or 3 or 4, and some of the longer ones could be 7 or 8. And there's page numberings and all the other things, and the mundane things that one has to do. And every time you go through a draft looking at it from a third-person perspective, it helps to hone your thoughts and to make corrections. And no, that doesn't seem quite right. This isn't going to work. Or whatever it is. Or hey, this seems pretty good. I have a lot of books, and I hope that I live long enough to get them published. Or it will be as though I had never written a word, other than the tens of thousands of words and comments I put down in the Liberty Movement. Literally. Tens of thousands of comments. Scattered all over. You do what you can, depending on your fervor. And because I'm older, I can do it. I have less to risk. I've lived a good life and an exciting life. I've written more than you can imagine. That's what I feel I am at heart. I just happen to have fallen into this liberty movement now because it's the most important thing I think I can do with my limited skill sets, starting at zero and trying to help in a multiple number of different ways. Whatever way I can fit in best, like a free safety or a center halfback in soccer. Right? I was into sports. I was an athlete. My brother was 7 years older than me. He wasn't as good an athlete, but they made him captain of some of the football teams because they said, we like the way you make the plays. We like your plays. And as guys learn in sports, you just take every participant and you put them in the best position they can be for the benefit of the team. That's what a military does. And to mess around with the military, and wasn't planning on going off into this tangent. So let's do a whole new thing. Hi, my name is Leslie, and we're talking about the military today. Topics that you don't normally talk about in the First Amendment auditor movement, unless you want to cause trouble for yourself, right? That's a 2A up there, right? A flag waving nationalist. Yeah, but you do need a military, don't you? And peace. The precipice. So eventually people will run across things that they'll truly be offended about, and they'll properly unsub me because it'll be an emotional thing. I've had enough of it. 2 tapes in a row, or the very first one that they might see of me, and they've never seen anything from Leslie. Maybe they might have seen my comments or me on my chats or doing modding, which I don't do too much anymore. Used to be 3 at a time. This was years ago. And or they might hear a host mention my name or say, yeah, you should look and read Leslie's comments, and all these things that we always hear in a chatter about, not in panels too much with me on there, although a panel from time to time will mention me, just as sometimes activists talk to me behind their backs. How do I know? Because I've had a number of them at different points in time tell me so. So I believe them. There's no reason why not. It's not a big thing. I'm a minor player. I get that. As all of us are multifaceted, I do other things in life. I just happen to have devoted the majority of my life for the past 3.5 years or so to liberty movement, this particular aspect of it. As since 2016, I've been heavily into it under a blog site called House Divided with a staff of 2. I don't want to talk about that now, and even as early as 1998. I protected a president I didn't even vote for because of a blue dress with a stain on it. And I didn't care having oval sex in the oral orifice or not, as I wrote back then, a series. So I'm involved in politics in one way or another. I'm a pundit. I limit my pundency type of thoughts to the liberty movement, to just domestic things that stay within a very specific range of a mission statement, starting with my steady mantra, preserving liberty for the sake of all our posterity, regardless one's hue, ethnicity, color, all those Martin Luther King things that he accomplished at one time. About content and character is important. Now, we've taken back a step, we've gone backwards since then. I think from Martin's perspective, rolling in his grave. And no, Martin wasn't perfect. I get it. I'm a historian. I get how most of these pieces fit together. I just don't need to talk about them publicly because I focus on preserving liberty for the sake of all our progeny, regardless one's hue. Steady mantra. Keeps things focused. Few can't jump on board with that statement. Those who can't, it's generally because they really are racist, of which there are very few. Virtually everyone jumps on board. I don't care what political party you are in. You might be suspect if you don't recognize that person as belonging to either of your parties. Constitution first before party. Constitutional words lives matter. That's very clever, isn't it? Constitutional words lives matter. And I have a vid on Black Lives Matter as a metaphor, amongst other things. And because I'm so IT literate, best to watch my vids all the way through. You might find some things from the end, because I don't know how to bring things forward yet to the front to show you what the interesting part might be. And I don't get my face planted, even though I have been out there, and even before I didn't put up certain vids. Couldn't tell anyone that I had them, because I've lost them, so I'm so IT inept. They were in files someplace. I kept searching for years. Finally come up to them, because what do you say? Yeah, I had a few good minutes, but I can't find them. You just say nothing. Seriously, it's protesting too much. I try to have my words equal my actions as best I can, and you're welcome to call me out constructively, or however you want. I can't stop you from that, although I could delete you, but I prefer not to because I am non-censorious. House Divided was a non-ad hominem site. Plenty of sarcasm in the editorial section, I assure you. But we had links upon links upon links, the complete sound bites, 30 to 60 per week, calls from hundreds, trying to find them because I do lean a little bit to the right, being conservative and libertarian in nature, because I do like to conserve things and slow down according to the checks and balances, and the concept of us having votes so close by just percentage points, when most of the rest of the world has it 60%, 80%, and as you head to real totalitarian governments, 99.99% pure, and then the oxymoronic names of things like the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea. What? What? When do words not mean what they mean? Newspeak Orwellian. It's a bit Marxist, perhaps, from my perspective. Oh, did I say Marxist? What does that mean? Does it mean socialist? What does socialist mean? What's the difference between socialism and social services? And why do the North countries say stop calling us socialist countries? I don't get it. Well, I do get it, actually. Do you get it? Or do you get it? Or do you get it? Some get it. I was astounded to find out what a low percentage of those within our own system get it. Something's wrong with the screen. It's terrible. It's terrible. Clarity. It's the worst I've ever had. This is ridiculous. It's okay. I'll live with it. This is just a one time over here. This is sad. So I try not to get involved in politics too much and focus on those limited things. And the main thing after that mantra is furthering liberty as opposed to diminishing it. It's like calling Karens and Brads. What positive service does that perform other than adding to a few clicks and views, which I also get is going to end up as a compromise because you need to get viewership. But those viewers who you finally get on mostly already get it or are soon to get it. That term that we use for others to understand the nuances of why we do these bizarre things we do, that we know are right and just and according to law, wanting to all follow a single set of law, if only the police and government and everyone else we pay to do taxes, pay our taxes to specifically protect our civil rights to do the things where we want to. It's a citizen's civic duty to publicly record our public servants on the course of their public duties while on the public dime, our hard earned money. Whether we buy sales tax or what, it's not the point. They divert. Their art of intimidation is down to a very limited scope, but it's still all dialectic. Cop splaining from East Coast to West, we get all that. The whole system from the lower courts is not is worse. As you go up in court, you have a better chance of finding justice. Generally speaking, some don't believe that because I think they confuse their cognitive dissonance of their own anecdotal life, adding on to that, giving it a greater weight and measure of what they see around the rest of the world around them. So, in anything that they see fitting into that cognitive dissonance, they add as a deeper, more ingrained memory and discount the rest. Just like if we saw everything in our surroundings around us with our visual, we wouldn't be able to cope and survive because we have to separate the wheat from the chaff for survival instincts. And those who can't get killed off quicker, and they don't have as long a period of time to pass on the genetics. Over tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years, it begins to make a difference, especially when you get into different sized groups, larger to shrinking and so on, and then complex. I love that type of stuff. You can look at it in one of my separate playlists if you want, under early man and hominids. But here in the liberty movement, I focus on the liberty. And I try not to let others get me caught off on tangents, which would be so easy to do. And I try to be kind and to further liberty, which drama does not foster furthering liberty. Doesn't. And we want to win hearts and minds. Whose hearts and minds do we want to win? I wonder. As Ranger's trying to get my attention. He's the only one who can get me off track a little bit. It's interesting. I love my dog. I'm loyal to him. It's a great dog. Liberty Ranger. So I try not to let others get me off track because it would be so easy for me to go off in tangents because I love them so. It takes me extra psychic energy to remain somewhat focused. And if I do get off track, I appreciate you helping me put myself back on the right track, gently if you could, onto my bliss path that hopefully will help serve others too. Or however you think, maybe a quick slap in the face, whatever it takes sometimes, right? A swift kick in the ass. I can handle it. I prefer to you to be gentle and thoughtful because I can fight back. I may not be strong as you, but I'll scratch my way and bite my way and fight my way to leave a permanent mark on you, just like Paladin from the TV show. Great show, great philosophical show. There were a few good ones back then. Have gun will travel. Anyway, he was a very interesting character who knew that he might not be the quickest draw out there, but he was so accurate, and you could count on his bullets that he even had handmade to be weighted and honed. Such a fine craftsman and light trigger he had, and properly oiled holster right all the way down to his derringer he kept strapped in his belt on his belly. So he might not have been the fastest, but the gunfighter coming against him, as Paladin was basically a Bounty hunter. A bounty hunter, a white knight bounty hunter. Is sophisticated as well. Very cool. But the bad guy knew, firstly, he had to be on the best of his game, which I understood from swimming, because my times might have always been the fastest among the group, but my times were always fairly close together. I was consistent. Who knows whether their best time was done 6 months ago and they never achieved it again. So all these little psychological games, because they had to do their best to beat me. And I had good solid turns and took advantage of every single tenth of a second within that turn, knowing to get my maximum speed coming out of it, pushing off a wall on fire mentally, kicking off as hard as I could, and taking 3 strokes before even my first breath, which would have slowed me down. In long distance races, I could breathe on either side to keep track of where the rest of the competitors were. It was a wonderful experience. My phone's talking to me. I'm just taking a look at it. Sometimes I get an image coming up here. I spend 10, 12 hours a day on this, mind you. It's 7 days a week, 365. When I get focused on something, I get focused. I started so low. I knew nothing about IT. Now I know virtually nothing about IT. I might be in the beginnings of first grade, but that's okay. Uh, I'm fine. I'm happy with where things are, and I might even get a chance to do van life. What fun that would be. At 73. So my vids are eclectic. You'll find one that you just don't like. I probably don't like that one too. That's okay. I don't have to have all of them they don't like. Every single one of my poems doesn't have to be perfect. Although, for a poetry book, I might cull some of those out, because I don't like the idea of filler pages, really. I have to think about that. Anyway, those are separate things. And poetry books isn't just what I do, believe me, I'm as eclectic in my writing as everything else I do, or the antique shop that I had that was called Antiques and Eclectica, or in one of my playlists. It's oddities and ephemera and things like that in the eclectic. A lot of my playlists are liberty based, so they do have a liberty theme, whether they're walks with Liberty Ranger, or Liberty Galley Kitchen, or I did have 2 food platforms ask me to join them, which I denied. I've had other chances of notoriety. I go into that in other places or in other writings. No need to duplicate that here. And it's just by chance of birth and environment and time, place, and manner that I'm here, or even here now. It's no different than someone else being grabbed off the street and put into a similar environment. Nothing special about it. It's really not. As my mother had explained to me when I was younger, almost in those words, and other things. And I hope to get some of my books that are finished. 10, 12 books easily, and all sorts of manuscripts. I've mentioned that because it's still big on my mind. But liberty's a priority, so I'll juggle those things together. That's my job. When I've written about juggling conflicting goals, that's one of my vids. I have to do it carefully, like with a rubber ball. So if it bounces at least once, maybe I can catch it on the up bounce, as opposed to it just being a blue ball. I had a good story on blue balls. I really like the one Steve McQueen. I talked about that in last night's vid that I did. Between 2 and like 1 and 4 in the morning, it was ridiculous. I don't do things like that, but just to get out of the way, there's so many aspects of the tying up of the loose ends of my life, the denouement that I'm doing. It seems to be working out okay. A little trepidatious feeling in the heart saying that. So close. I like adventures and I like playing things at the last minute, but there's usually extra grace period, like a decade or two that you think you might have. I'm 73. I won't be like this at 83. It's going to be ridiculous. It's not going to happen if I'm even there. I try to stay minimally fit without going overboard, just not to have zeros on my chart. That's the key. Do something. Just doing something leads to generally something plus something else. One push-up or one crunch might lead to two. I don't do push-ups. So. I think that's enough. You met Liberty Ranger. That's all that really matters. And anyway, you're unsubbing to me by the droves at this point. So I'll just go on my merry way. And you'll find me somewhere down the road or down the YouTube wormhole, driving merrily along in my van. Maybe I can go talking to you with the headsets on, right? The headsets. Dot 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 dot. We'll all have to learn Morse code. Dot 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 dot. Dot 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 dot.